On today's episode, we do what's in our name and chat old world. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Old World Fanatics, your Warhammer fantasy podcast to quench your hobby thirst for all things the old world. I'm one of your hosts, Gomo. I'm joined by Andrew and Josh. How is everyone going today?
Yeah, I'm going good, thanks, Scammo. How you going?
I am pretty good, man. Pretty excited, pumped up after
Ooh,
the first week of podcasts.
yep,
We're
big
getting some
week.
good results.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. How you going, Josh?
Yeah, no, I'm feeling the same, Gomo. Feeling very excited about following week, and I'm keen to get into it again this week, eh?
Yeah, I know. We were sort of saying we might only record every few weeks, but we've had such a good first week. That's a good topic there, just in terms of just saying like a big thank you to everyone. It will be over 200 of you guys have downloaded our first episode.
Woo.
So, yeah,
Amazing.
for three people who no one knows who we are, and except for our little gaming groups, I think we're pretty happy with the first week, and hence we wanted to get back on pretty quick and chat about, and I guess just have a bit of a more normal episode, because our first one was, we were pretty keen to put one out, but we wanted to also cover Castle Assault, and so we didn't really get to just chat about the old world or what we've been doing.
Yeah,
So
there was a
yeah.
lot to cover in that episode, wasn't there? Like,
Yeah, it was big.
we were trying to introduce ourselves, and we had all the games of Castle Assault to go through, and I mean, it's a nice long episode, and I'm sure people enjoy listening, filling in their ears while they're painting for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it
that's
is
what I
nice to
think
have a
you
bit more
said
time to
that
chat.
this week, didn't you? That's what people do. They're probably listening while they're either painting or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's what I usually do.
Totally. Yeah. So look, so this will be more of a normal episode. I don't even know what that means because it's only our second one, but we wanted to at least cover news that's happened since our last episode. Hopefully that's more and more old world news, but I mean, it is what it is at the moment.
Yep.
And then obviously let's catch up on some hobby stuff that we've been doing. And then this episode, we want to just catch up on what we know of the old world in terms of all the news that's come out since inception, whenever that was, 3 years ago. But not going in depth, just more going through a bunch of stuff where, what we think about what we've heard. Just a caveat before we get to that, we're not experts in this. We're not experts in the law, so we're probably going to say,
no, we're not.
we're probably going to get a lot wrong and go, oh, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Or we'll hear Josh trying to find it in the background.
Yes, thanks, guy.
But hopefully people find it informative, if nothing else, or fun, I should say.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So with that, I mean, let's get on to some news. In the last week, basically, I mean, the first thing I guess is Nova Open's coming up, and we're pretty excited. That's why we wanted to get this episode out as well. Is that GW announced they're going to do one of these big announcements on Thursday or Wednesday, or whatever it is. I think it's Thursday here in Australia. At Nova Open in the US, for all the game systems, are going to have some announcements, but obviously they are now including Old World in all this stuff. So we're pretty excited to hear what they're going to do there. And I think in the Old World segment, we'll got a little bit about what we think they might say or not. But I think if you don't know that's happening, we might even jump on, if you're lucky, at the end of the week for a quick episode on, I guess, our response to that. Did you guys know that or not?
I do now.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yep.
Yeah. That's going to be cool. Obviously, look out for that, guys. But the other big thing, obviously, is Cities of Sigmar dropped. I know it's not fantasy. I don't really play AOS, but I mean, you got to love some of those figures that came out. Hey.
Yeah. I definitely rated the just the new look. I guess they're sort of going for with that range. Very black powder, very sort of armed up. Just Age of Sigmar, there's a lot of those big scary monsters out there, and I think it's just sort of the showing how the humans are sort of able to take on those monsters with the big guns, the big armor. I think it fits into the that sort of narrative quite nicely.
Yeah, it's giving its own aesthetic compared to it's almost moving on from the older Empire aesthetic, from the old world, isn't it? Really, where previously, where Cities of Sigmar was just a mishmash of different units. I like the identity that that they're going for.
Yeah.
With Cities of Sigmar and these new releases.
What about these knights here? So I'm sharing the screen with these guys, going through the starter box or whatever you want to call it. What do you think of the knights versus I really rate this guy, I rate the wizard guy too. But the humans I rate, the knights look very almost chaotic, but it's cool. I like it, but it is definitely, that's totally different to
Yeah.
fantasy. Hey, Warhammer
Yeah,
fantasy.
not for me, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting style.
They got like a religious zeal sort of fanaticism going.
True.
Yep.
As well.
Makes sense, obviously, yeah. Followers of Sigmar. But yeah, I really rate it. And I did, when I first saw them, I really liked them. I mean, since getting back more into Warhammer and Six and seeing the old world hopefully accelerate, I'm sort of less inclined to get the Cities of Sigmar. But I think down the track, who knows? And I think they're obviously doing this to really split apart the AOS models and old world, and they bring obviously more of these figures back, the existing ones into the old world range. But the cool thing is, I still think there's that crossover. So if you're a good, if you're a bit of a converter or whatever, you've got the freedom to, mishmash a little bit. Even I've got the that alchemist guy up. I mean, you could really see him being, I guess I would say, a metal or gold wizard, but that probably might not exist in the old world either. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
A lot of detail in those cloaks as well. Like there's just, that's the ability. Like it looks really good because you've got the ability to not put in that much effort with highlighting everything and making it sort of but you could, if you wanted to, have that massive figure piece. It's good that it just has that ability.
Totally. I actually heard someone on YouTube, because a lot of the YouTubers get these first and they've already painted them, and they said they're actually quite, even though they look way detailed, they're actually quite quick to paint because of that. So that's cool.
Yeah, which probably it's in line with the they're trying to speed up that hobby. Obviously with the painting and whatnot, you got the contrast coming out. Maybe that's sort of what they're trying to aim for, is a quicker hobby, I suppose.
Yeah,
because they're so. Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that, really, because they look so intricate and highly designed. I would have thought, that it would take quite a while to pick up all the detail and get it all looking quite sort of nice. Yeah.
I guess this is the thing. When you cross reference a really detailed plastic kit with contrast paints, you get a fair way of the way there if you're just trying to make something that looks half decent without popping too much. So
true.
I guess that's
the less flat space surfaces there are for the contrast to pull on, the better it looks. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, could be. And then the other ones that we know about so far are these, at least one new Auric coming. They've already shown this guy. I mean, I don't know much about the Aurics and the Ard boys, but sort of what we were saying before about the different units moving back to old world. One of the rumors I did hear about, which we may hear on Thursday, who knows, is that the current Ard boys will be updated basically. So they get, I guess what we're saying is Black Orcs might end up back in old world, and they'll get a new range for AOS potentially is one thing. And we do know that from the Warhammer Fest that massive, do you guys remember that huge big thing? I think it was Warhammer Fest. Oh no, it was the last preview show, I think, showed that massive gore grunter with 3 orcs hanging off it or something. Whatever it was called. Did you guys see that?
Yeah. That it looked pretty cool.
So I think that's got to come out at some point. So,
yeah.
No, I have no memory of that. I guess I don't.
Okay.
A lot of the the Sigmar stuff
doesn't
quite land in my brain necessarily.
Nah, it's cool. I mean, I do wish if 8th was still around. Who knows what the old world does? When I saw the Gore Grunters, I mean, they don't float everyone's boat, but I was like so desperate for monstrous infantry in 8th edition. I was like, yeah, I'd love to be able to plug them into 8th edition because just some big nasty, riding ball things. But
Yeah, they're pretty
we'll
big.
see.
I
Yeah,
do like like you'd be the same. Obviously, you collected orcs, so you follow those classic fantasy armies. So I do that in Age of
yeah.
Sigmar as well. Like I like the classic ones. I wouldn't have any idea of anything in Stormcast,
Or
obviously.
deep sea kin thing,
Yeah,
whatever that
yeah, yeah,
underwater
yeah.
thing is.
But
Yeah,
the similar sort of model range,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I agree. Like, because I did play it briefly as Age of Sigmar. When it was sort of after I got ninth was sort of changing, and I tried that, and I tried Sylvaneth because I had some dryads and I had some tree men, and I just sort of built on that, and they were models that were familiar to me, and sort of a faction that at the time was pretty much just tree spirits, So yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Andrew. That I do tend to stick with the factions that are familiar,
yeah.
It's an aesthetic that's familiar as well.
I think
Um,
I mean, they could say all they want they're not, but I feel like the last few range edits, they've pulled it back a little bit.
yeah,
Back, so it looks a little bit more Warhammer-ish, even though when I say Warhammer fantasy-ish. Not that I think they're doing it to, allow you to use them in old world, but
no,
I don't know. I just feel like it just seems to fit a bit more. I don't know. I don't know if
yeah,
that
yeah.
makes sense, but yeah. It could be just the releases they brought out too. Who knows? Hopefully those the Tomb King equivalents can just die. They're the worst. Anyway, I won't get into worst models ever made, but anyway.
Uh,
So the other big news I brought up, which I don't know if everyone is as interested in it as me, but I love the history of Games Workshop and Warhammer and all that sort of stuff. And I bought the Dice Men when it came out, which is a book by Ian Livingston. I think it's his name, isn't it? One of the guys who started Games Workshop. That's a cool book. I got a signed copy of that. And then I didn't even know this one was coming, which is Talking Miniatures. So if you guys don't know what that is, look on Google for talkingminiatures.co.uk. It's basically a collection of interviews that Robin Dews, who's the old, if you followed, if you were playing this in back and forth 5th, 6th edition, you'd remember him as the White Dwarf editor. And one of the other former GW sales directors, John Stallard. They basically did 16 or 17 interviews with a bunch of the old GW guys, Rick Priestley's, the Perry twins, stuff like that. And there's a couple of, at least I've found, at least there's 2 good interviews at the moment on YouTube with Jordan Sorcery and Miniature Realm. Definitely check them out. I mean, if it's a hint of what's coming in that book, it's going to be worth getting just from the stories that they've talked about. So I don't know. Have you watched any of the YouTube videos, guys, on them?
I believe I've seen a snippet of one what you're talking about because I remember seeing one. There was a couple of guys in there that had like a camera and they were talking to some old school guys from the back in the day GW. I think in one of them they might have even played a game possibly.
Right.
But yeah, it looked very interesting. It obviously it's a different time, different sort of to the GW now, to the GW then.
Yeah.
Obviously,
yeah, very
these are the
different.
guys sort of built it up. So I reckon it's a really good sort of, mindset. Be very interesting to listen to
Yeah.
what they got to say.
Mm.
Yeah, Josh, is there anything on that one, or you haven't seen them yet?
Not really. No, can't contribute especially to that one.
That's all cool. Yeah, well, if you get a chance, have a look at it. But yeah, I like it's the ones I did watch the Miniature Realm interview, and that was really good. But Jordan Sorcery is awesome. If you haven't, do you guys know? Have you followed his YouTube channel?
No, not particularly.
Nah, okay,
No.
yeah. So if you're into Warhammer history, he is definitely he's been doing a really good set probably since the beginning of the year, really good sort of step through every edition and like pretty in depth, good hour or so on every edition and stuff. So worth checking that out, if especially not just us guys but anyone listening.
Oh.
Jordan Sorcery, I'll plug him. I'm one of his Patreons, so definitely worth it. Hey,
Awesome.
so that's the news. We may be back, well, hopefully we'll be back on Thursday to talk more news after the Nova Open, but for now let's chat some hobby, guys. What have we been up to?
Yeah, so I've been up to a few things. I've mainly, like I spent, since Castle Salt the other week, I spent the weekend I got home, I just cleaned out my desk because it was a real mess of paints and stuff everywhere. Just as I was feverishly getting stuff ready for that tournament. I just feel like it, when you're in that mode, you got no time to stop and clean stuff. But once it's all over, I think it's nice to take the time to do that, just to refresh and maybe look
Yeah.
at getting a new project going, or getting out some old stuff that you might have been neglecting for a while. And I did. I'd printed off some night goblins a few months ago that I'd sort of started painting a little bit, but then I had to focus on getting the nice done that I wanted to do for Castle Assault, so I had to drop them for that time. But now I'm like, I feel like, oh, I'm so free. I can pick whatever I want to do, and got all this time. I don't have any particular tournaments coming up anytime soon that I have to like race towards or prepare for. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've just been taking my time, just experimenting a little bit with the gobbos, and mainly I've been trying to work out the right sort of paint scheme and balancing the colors, because gobbos tend to be fairly bland depending on how you paint them. Like I'd have gone for a fairly classic look of black cloaks and sort of red bows or spear staves, spear handles. But I'm trying to bring up color using basing and mushrooms and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And my first attempt, it was kind of like I went for, like, I've got a whole range of different mushrooms, different species, and they all look kind of different. So I was like, oh, I'll paint all the different mushrooms in different colors. And it actually came out sort of jarring almost. Like there's just too much different color going on. There's not a
Yeah, right.
your eye can't focus on a particular area. It's just a whole rainbow of stuff going on. And it just didn't really feel right. So I think I'm going to go back and maybe try to sort of simplify the color scheme of the mushies and make them maybe a blue, and maybe even try to give them a bit of a glowing effect, I suppose. Because and that might give us a reasonable color balance too, because the goblins I've printed off, they've actually, instead of squigs, they've got frogs. And I was planning to paint the
Oh,
frogs are
wow.
ridiculous. These are Highland miniatures. These
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
but
Do they
they're
have the squig? What's the mangler squig? Do they have the version of that then
oh,
with two
he hasn't
frogs?
made one of
Or
those ones,
okay.
unfortunately. I know it looks so ridiculous. But yeah, I sort of painted the frog sort of a yellow. So I felt like, getting some yellow from there and the green and the red from the goblins, maybe the blue mushrooms on the base would sort of help to balance all that out.
Yeah, definitely like less is more sometimes. Like you were
Mm,
saying, you can sometimes just get a little bit too carried away.
yeah,
You
yeah,
think it's good and then you put it all down. It's like, oh, yeah.
yeah. Just doesn't
Yeah.
feel right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to copy you, Josh, because I bought a bunch of the Squigger something, Squigger Mammoth or something from AOS with all the squigs, big box set for AOS, and didn't do anything with it. But also bought a bunch of 3D printed miniature, what is it, mushrooms. So, but I didn't do anything with it. I want to do that, but I might just wait to see what you do. So when you
Yeah.
said glowing effect, so that'll glow on their cloak and on the ground. Is that what you mean, like
I
from the
haven't tried it
mushroom?
yet.
Or
It depends how much time it takes. I don't really want to spend like ages painting them. But yeah, I am
yeah,
thinking of doing it just like making the mushroom fairly bright. Like you'd have to go for almost like a white, you know, highlight to really make them look quite bright, and then having just a little bluish dry brush around the mushroom. And yeah, if it might be on a cloak or might just be on the basing around it.
yeah.
Just to bring
You
it,
might not have to
nothing
do that with every
major.
mushroom, hey, either. Like, because that
No.
could be like a mushroom that's finally spawned or whatever you call it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And the
That's
rest of
true.
them are.
That's true. That's true. You could have varying levels of brightness. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
was almost laughing in the background because Josh is like, oh, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on these. I was just thinking, well, what's not too much time for Josh? Because if anybody hasn't
Yeah,
seen Josh's army, they're these
yeah.
meticulous, beautiful, I don't know how many days and weeks you spend on each miniature of your Bretonian army, but it's like next level. So when he's saying, I don't want to spend too much time, for me, it's probably way too much time. It's
Yeah,
Makes
probably
totally.
sense.
at least 2 or 3 hours on each bloody miniature.
For
Well,
me, the Bretonians are different though. Like they're just the army that I just love to paint, and I just spend months at a time just painting them.
Yeah.
Whereas if I want to get the goblins out, kind of thing, it's kind of like I just want to push them out. But yeah.
Is this do you have an army list that you're aiming for with this? Like, is this an orc and goblin army? Is it just goblins? Like,
I was trying to go for a themey sort of goblin, not necessarily just night goblins, but goblin army list, I suppose.
Yeah.
And just
Good
sort of
luck with that
see what
leadership.
happens. Yeah, I know. I don't know what's gonna. I mean, I may end up having some orcs as well. I'm not sure really what I'm planning with it. I just thought they looked cool, and I printed them off, and now I'm painting them.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. That's cool.
Yeah. So, Andrew, have you been up to much in terms of hobby?
Yeah, no. So, with what I've done, I've probably not achieved anything. But I have been spending quite a bit of time, as I tend to do. I procrastinate, and I think so. I have been spending a exorbitant amount of time probably scheming from my list and takeaways from Castle Assault. It's sort of one of those things. I'm kind of stuck now because aiming for a 2,000 point list or something similar from what we had at Castle Assault. It does get really tight. It does get really tight with what you want. And one thing I've had to take away from that is how much do you spend on a Lord? It's one of those sort of. This is 6th edition, obviously we're talking about, and you start kitting up people here and there, not to make a Death Star as such, but you kit up the attacks, and then you're like, oh, I don't want this guy just to die, so I'm just going to give him like some decent armor. And next thing you're pushing, 300 odd points for a Lord. So yeah, sort of trying to squeeze that in.
The problem with the dwarves too is if you make them too hard for someone to consider going into combat,
you're just going to run around, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to end up in combat. Yeah, so
yeah,
there's a definite balance there in terms of how much you outlay.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm sort of stuck there at the moment. The other thing I've been doing, well, I didn't really do too much of it, but it's probably good discussion, is I acquired some new iron breakers. Wouldn't say the latest range, but it is. But it's been out for probably 8 years, maybe 6 to 8 years.
That's scary.
It's a sad state of affairs, isn't it? The latest range.
Yeah, it's been out for a while. We'll say that.
When you wrote that in the notes, I thought you meant just the old metal.
Nah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the plastic jobbies. So what I've done, I've actually got 20 iron breakers, the same ones. But this is probably a good little topic we can have. But I stripped them, and when I've stripped them, I just wee bit of meltage on the models.
Oh.
So I'll tell you about what I did, and then obviously what happened, and then I painted them up, and they just didn't look that great. So I'm getting these new iron breakers. Hopefully I can paint up nicely, because when you paint something, you don't like it, and you're just like, yeah, it's just an eyesore. So I've got to change those. So yeah, basically I threw a bunch of iron breakers into. It actually works really good as a paint stripper. Is brake fluid on plastic. Basically, you usually leave it in for maybe half a day. It doesn't really damage the plastic at all. Not the plastic that I've used. But this time I think I left it in there for a week maybe. So there was a bit of surface pitting on like the plastic, and they kind of melted into each other a little bit. So because I just put them in like this container, and they're resting on top of each other, and just that weight of the one on top kind of just, the axe or the shield just made like little divots.
So if they weren't like all together like that, it probably wouldn't have done that. And obviously you wouldn't leave it in for a week.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
I've done it before, yeah. And then I find like I don't know what you guys have done, but Metho works okay. It's probably not that strong. And then
I've done that and simple green. That's all I've used, I think.
Yeah, I know people talk about Dettol. Dettol's pretty expensive.
Oh, sorry, Dettol. That's what
I
I've used.
Dettol. Yeah, Dettol used to be my go-to.
Yep.
Which worked pretty well.
Smells better than the others.
There was just you just had to be careful not to get any water in the area while you were stripping, because otherwise it would just turn into a foul,
gluggy. Yeah.
mess, and it was just awful.
Yeah, done that.
I've
I don't think I've had great success stripping in the sense that maybe I've
Nah.
always just used stuff that's not that powerful, so therefore I've always like end up scrubbing away, or there's always still bits of paint in there. Like I've never had anything that just works flawlessly, but that's
Yeah. The more detailed they are, it's like it just gets stuck in crevices, and it's just
yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, I probably have mainly use isopropyl alcohol these days, or probably similar to metho. Really, that's more because I have so much of it for printing. I'm just like, oh, I might as
Yeah,
well
'cause
use
you
that to
need it for
strip.
yeah,
Which works fine, and it's quite safe. Like you can just leave things in that tub for weeks on end, and they'll be completely undamaged, plastic or whatever. I think resin you have to be a bit careful with most things, but
Yeah.
plastic and metal is totally fine.
I did get some high grade ISO from work that might have fallen off the back of a truck or something. Borrowed some, and it melted
Yeah.
my plastic. So I think there
Oh
must be
no.
Oh wow.
I think this is a very high
Oh
grade one.
yeah. What what
Because I
what
think
are you
metho's
getting from
around
work?
70%, and then I think ISO can go like in the 90s. So, but yeah,
Right.
there must just be different grades. But this one, it worked to
Yeah.
treat on metal, but yeah, plastic. And I put my higher BSB in there, and it was a bit devoed because I was trying to
Oh
paint off his
no.
the banner, and then like all these bits of plastic started melting onto the toothbrush, and I'm just like,
Oh
So
god.
anyway,
Yeah.
No, heartbreaking. Yeah. You got
Nah,
some
that's
real real potent isopropyl alcohol going on there.
yeah,
Oh my
the good
god.
stuff. Yeah.
So you're doing you've been doing this list though up because you and me you want to have a game at some point. Hey, we're going to
Yeah,
try do a battle report podcast as well at some point. I don't know how we're going to do this, but
yeah, no, definitely.
yeah.
We'll got this little grudge match coming up. I'm just trying to keep it as like a generic list. Like, I don't like it. You kind of go into a battle looking to face off exactly what your
Yeah.
opponent's
No,
got.
yeah. I think
Oh
Kind of,
damn! Does that mean I need to put the Dispel scrolls back in my list?
yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to keep it as like a generic tournament list, I suppose.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
I
I
think
haven't
that's the best way to
changed.
do it.
I like the idea of what we're like. I always love the motivation to get an army done. Not so much like last minute or anything, but it certainly helps when you have a list that you're working towards. So
Yeah,
now that I have the CA list, and if we're gonna, get a game in, this week or next week or whatever, I've just basically gone with. It's not even that much bigger. I think it's literally just the Tomb King and a chariot. So I need to paint one of them, and then another block of archers, and got rid of the Sharpty and just moved a few little things around. So it's almost the same list with
yeah,
slightly different magic items,
Oh.
but not really. That way I only need to paint, I don't know, 12 archers and a chariot. So that was my sort of logic behind it
What
a bit.
was the
yeah.
thought process in getting more archers and dropping the Sharpie?
So I'll end up with 2 blocks of 20,
Yeah.
one of which has a standard. um,
Okay.
but yeah, just to again, just to like, I was missing things for the Hierophant just fly into, but also then more things just to throw in front of stuff I don't want to fight. So if you have 20 archers, I feel like you can shoot enough to take out some stuff. And if you have 2 lots of 20, you can probably shoot out a little bit more, but then you don't care about either of them. And to be honest, the Tomb Guard dropped down a little bit. So therefore, again, do I care if they're getting combat? Probably not. So they've got there's a Tomb Prince in that Tomb Guard unit, and the Tomb King goes in the chariots. And hopefully I'll
Okay.
get more use out of the chariots
Yeah.
because he can do two things with them. But at the same time, I
Definitely.
did bring the chariot. Originally, I think I was talking to you guys about like a big chariot Death Star thing. And then I
Yeah.
went, well, similar to what your Lord comment was, well, if I only have 5 chariots all up in this unit, it's not that scary, but it's also scary enough that it can do damage. But if I lose it, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's like you're sort of playing with that size of the list where, yeah, it's flexible, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
Yeah.
you don't want to be charging up, leaving everyone else behind, and getting isolated, and then crumped by the by the opposition
Yeah.
army. Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're chariots as well, so they can just get taken. Like they're just light chariots. So I don't know. We'll see. Again,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's not
They
really a
are
power list. I
fast
just want to be able to
cavalry though.
use them.
They
Yeah,
are
well, that's what I want to see if they can. You've got a guy who can do 2 casts on himself, at least to move and fire and stuff. He can sort of operate fairly independently a little bit,
Yeah.
And chariots are so big that, like, the Hierophant in a skeleton unit can probably still reach 12 inches to do, like, heal them and stuff like that. So you never know. I mean, again, it's how you play it and terrain and all that, but it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see how it goes.
Do
Yeah.
your chap do much for you in Castle Assault?
No, not really. They're too small for that. Like, at the end of the day, they're 3 wound, toughness 4, 5 up save, and they're strength 6. So I think they're cool if you thought there was going to be a lot of high toughness stuff. But I mean, there's only 3 of them. What can they do? And they're usually hitting on like 4s.
Yeah.
Like they're just not. Yeah.
Yeah, hitting on
I think they're
4s,
better
so
in
good.
8th. Sorry, they could have been better in 8th if they had a few extra rules. But then when you got things like Stomp and stuff, I think that was cool. But in 6th, it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I guess you could
we'll see.
either drop them as you've done, or buff the numbers to get another one, so you got 4 in a row, or a second rank or something. But yeah, sounds interesting.
So
Interesting to see how that game goes.
I want to get through them. I was going to put 2 extra chariots in. I did have that, but then I was fiddling around with the points. Went, oh well, I'll just drop a chariot, make it. It's probably not as potent in the unit anymore, but I mean, I'll get it done and we'll see how it works in terms of just playing with it. I don't know how it'll go against dwarves, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how. Yeah, if you got more chariots going, like having 2 threat points where you could have different chariots going on, that would be interesting to play with as well.
Yeah. Well, that's what you do generally see when you got the chariots. You got like a bigger unit and you got some other smaller ones.
Yeah.
I've got more chariots, but not that many. I've only got maybe 2 or 3 more. So there's a guy at Legion's Club who has a battalion, like whatever it's called, like an army box, that he could sell me. But I'm sort of feeling right now I might as well just wait because I'll see what comes out because it sounds like they're just going to re-release it. So I don't know. I figure if I've painted all the chariots I got and I need more and the old world's not out, then I'll buy them off him. But we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, that's my hobby apart from getting this podcast out. So yeah, I don't know. Has anyone done anything else, or we want to move on to the main topic?
Yeah, that is definitely it.
Okay. Let me just play our transition sound.
Ooh.
There we go. So we're also playing around with a new podcast recording thing, which I forgot to hit record on when we started, and the guys love me for it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we want to talk old world. That's what we're here for. That's the old world fanatics. So yeah, what do we want to start with? I originally put a few sort of bullet points down in terms of things to talk about, like settings, the models, the rules. I want to hand over to one of you guys. What do you want to talk about? Do you want to start, Law, or what?
Yeah, like where did you want to start? We have basically the only thing that obviously, well, law-wise I was looking into was trying to pick the date, which obviously you were too, Gamo.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was I got sort of a bit deep into, because to me I thought undead is very or vampire counts is very old world. And I was a bit, it was a bit dumbstruck. Is like, well, these guys are in the middle of the empire. How are they not going to be in the old world? But then, reading into it, they were sort of like, the Von Carsteins had died. They're all died out, and then the vampires sort of had, hidden away, I suppose, as a way to rebuild their strength slowly. And then just looking into that, where it was,
and so that's on 2145. Is that what you were saying?
that was where Manfred dies at the Battle of Hel Fen. So dwarves and Empire came down and they had a big beat up, and old Manfred died. He comes back, but we won't get into that. But he's officially sort of dead at 2145, and
As
that's
dead as a vampire gets.
and then that's there's a book about it, got wrecked, but I won't get into that. But that's just before the setting of the old world. So that's why we don't see the vampires basically in there at the moment.
Right. Okay. So it's got to be after that. Then you're thinking because yeah,
Mm.
they've sort of when they announced it, they sort of talking about the whole. Uh, was it the era of the three, like the setting of the three emperors, like when it was, it's like a civil war, and like there's no, I guess the empire's going through that turmoil of not really having, this Karl Franz / emperor figure until obviously the siege of Prague, and then obviously Magnus the Pious sort of getting everyone back in order.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I looked at the dates for that, it was a fair big sort of range, like it was, I can't remember the dates, but it was, whatever it was, 1700s through to 2400, or I can't remember, but it seemed to be a
Yeah.
lot. But
Yeah.
then rereading it seems to be, hey, this is just decades, they said, like before the siege of Prague. Like, and then I think, yeah, what did you find, Josh, with that?
Yeah. Yeah, so does it sound like they're leading into the siege of Prague, do you think? Like eventually, if, depends on, I guess, the time frame that they release it, but I feel like there's a potential that they could end up, if they're doing more expansions and more expansions, then go through those decades and
Yeah.
potentially eventually hit that that battle, I am sort of excited in terms of Bretonnia, being that it's I think it's the time of the Lewin Orc Slayer,
Yeah, yes.
which is it says it in that name, right?
Yeah.
So I think he because his big thing was about 2201, I think, when he actually declared an errantry war to get rid of all these greenskins that were going on, encroaching on our borders and that type of thing. And I feel like having that as a themey sort of part of the army, if the time frame is such that an errantry war is part of that sort of timeline, that's actually going to be kind of fun being able to run those kinds of lists. I think that would be kind of cool.
I'm pretty naive on the whole Brett law. Are they at that time? Then are they sort of more? They're not in civil war like the sort of empire is, if you call it civil war. But like, are
No,
they sort of more just how they are?
yeah, they're well established. I think they were, they've been going for a couple of thousand, maybe 1,000 years at that point. Yeah, I would think. And they'd had a few battles with chaos even before this era that we're talking about. And then because they've got a few extra things interesting sort of coming up after that as well. Like in around 2300 is when they have the Mulason, all the people dying in that, and you've got the undead coming out, in that era as well. So that potentially happens before the siege of Prague too, I think. So it'd be interesting if they do anything with that as well. But yeah, Bretonnia was pretty well formed, and they weren't in turmoil really, apart from all the orcs and goblins coming over the border.
Which is always the way.
Yeah.
I do find it weird that seems to be the Tomb Kings are the odd. It just seems weird that they're in this, but I guess it is the Badland. Like, obviously, the other
It's
thing they
so
did
weird.
start talking
Yeah.
about is they said this is going to be focused down in the Border Princes area, and potentially what's the story there is, the Tomb Kings are launching their invasion of the old world to sort of bring everything back under their reign. But I didn't really think the Tomb King had cities in the old world, so
No,
not totally.
it's strange, isn't it? Because early on, when they were doing the development, it was very much they were talking about Kislev and Cathay
Yeah.
and that type of thing, and then all of a sudden it just flipped to Bretonnia and Tomb Kings, and fluff wise, it's not
Yeah.
like they're two like bitter enemies really. It's almost like they've gone, okay, these are the two armies that we're going to release on, and now we sort of have to work out fluff wise how to how we can manage that. I think.
Yeah, and like to me, it's understandable too. Like, I don't expect them to get, when they first announced this thing, whatever it was pre-COVID. That's a massive thing.
Yeah.
So the world changed, and on top of that, I think, like you do with anything, you have an idea, you start putting it in practice. There's always budgetary things. You're probably trying to work out how to do it. And I feel like they have done a little, potentially there's been some steering around in terms of going, hey, well, we could do this whole launch with 2 new, Kislev, a whole new range and all that. But I mean, the fact that they killed the other game because it didn't, in fact, let's be honest, wasn't making them any money. I feel like they did turn around. I think they've had those discussions and gone, well, let's use some mostly existing stuff and set this up in a way that we can leverage armies that are, just low risk, and then if it goes well, maybe then it takes a long time for Games Workshop, I think, to bring out an entire new
Yeah.
range. So Kislev could be being made, but it's like we have to see if this works first.
Yeah, true.
Potentially, I don't know.
And
But
they've pretty much chosen the 2 armies that probably have the least amount of secondhand stuff going around. If you know what I mean, like they're
yep,
the
yeah,
most collectible. They're the highest prices in terms of secondhand stuff on eBay and that type of thing. So they're probably going, yeah, we can probably sell quite a lot of models of these 2 factions more so
yeah,
than anyone else. And then just going from there. I agree what you mean about practically trying to re-release something like this in this area in terms of what kind of budget they have, what kind of outlay they're going to put in terms of workforce and that type of thing. Because I feel like some of the ideas they were coming up with early on, they, I think they must have just had some feedback like, no, this is not this is not on. We're not going to do this, and it is risky. I agree. Like they killed the old world for a reason. It just wasn't
yep,
that profitable.
yep,
And now stepping back into it, there is a significant amount of risk doing it. And I feel like if there wasn't that nostalgia, and also if there wasn't the popularity of Total War going on, they probably wouldn't even be touching this.
yeah,
Yeah.
potentially, exactly, yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, so, yeah, if anything, it does. I mean, again, we can't control everyone else, but I feel like, we have to put our money where our mouth is with this. If we want Warhammer Fantasy to be around, we have to. And I know you're a 3D printer. We don't have to go into all that, but at the end of the day, whatever they bring out, we've got to make sure we're buying it and
Support.
using
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to fall down again.
Yep.
So yeah, it's like love them or hate them. You sort of got to decide. Hopefully, it succeeds because it's good, but also, the community rallies around it and actually does support it as well, and doesn't go, oh, I'm whinging because my old army's not being able to be used. It's like, well, come on, guys, you can use your
Yeah.
army in 6th.
The
Yeah.
community does like to whinge,
I haven't noticed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like anything, but I think
Yeah.
you're just gonna have that no matter what you do.
Yeah. No, but I mean, you do want to see those 2 army, like Cathay and Kislev. So bloody hell, I hope I
That would be
really
so
do
cool. Yeah.
hope it does sort of that generational. Well, I don't know if it's every year or General's Handbooky type thing where it sort of moves through
Yep.
and moves the timeline forward, because that would be an ideal way to test it out, get it up and running, but eventually, get Kislev in there, get some of these other ones, into the
Yeah, I
range.
mean, I guess the hard thing for them too is making sure they have ownership of the IP and that type of thing as well.
Yeah.
And that's partly why they stepped out of it in the originally. Really, like so much of this stuff is very generic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And putting in a lot of development and time and money into doing that. Yeah, there's a big downside potentially where they're taking on a fair bit of risk in doing that.
Yeah. Did you
Um,
say, Andrew, that you saw some names that you thought were changed or were interesting around that sort of copyright stuff when you were looking at the maps?
Yeah. I was just basically thinking, as Josh was saying, I wonder if they will be, talking the Empire or something, but be a bit more specific.
Mm.
Because there definitely did seem to be just it is quite hard to see, but I was looking at the old map and the new map, and it old world as you know it, I suppose, like it was quite different with the kingdom names.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely room for, as Josh said, to try and secure IPs and maybe rebrand the old world a bit into something Tolkien-esque, but still in a way which they can secure that IP. And I think
Mm.
naming conventions are probably going to be very important in their quest to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, it's interesting. I'm not sure, if we're going to get much more. Like, do you guys, well, actually, no, I was going to say, do you think we'll get some more lore on Thursday, but we can talk about that at the end. But yeah, is there anything else lore-wise you saw? I guess one thing I noted, now the timing's probably not 100% right here, but because I think it's actually around the 2000 mark, was the Mordenheim Comet was around that
What's it?
time.
Oh,
I wrote it down somewhere now, I can't find it. So it's interesting.
you said 2000.
Yeah, was it something like that? Let me just, I had it in somewhere.
Might predate it slightly.
But yeah, it looked to be more, yeah, obviously it's close, the Mordenheim, destruction of Mordenheim is closer to the old world time than it was the current time, so to speak.
Yeah,
So that's interesting too, because you never know that's, to me, that's money that they can just print,
yeah,
if
100%.
they bring that out. And so moving this time frame back to this era might give them a bit more ability to do that with the the whole miniatures. They were always obviously Warhammer figures anyway, but it sort of feels like it's, I don't know, just it's aligned a bit more, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, and they had that a lot with Age of Sigmars. I forget their name now, but they got the small skirmish games that sort of, you know,
Yeah, Warcry and that other one,
yeah,
whatever it's
yeah.
called.
Seems like they got a
Yeah,
decent following as well.
yeah, and you need to do it. I mean, I don't know if you guys are the same, but I mean, have you ever introduced a friend who does never played this
Yeah,
and expect them to actually pick it up?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
does it ever work? You know what I mean? Like
Nah.
as an adult, when you
Yeah.
walk in and you go to a 30-year-old adult or 40-year-old adult and say, "Oh, why don't you start painting 100 plus miniatures and play games with me?"
Yeah,
They just go, "No."
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that's
No.
interesting. There was one other. Oh, the other thing I did like about, and maybe this, I was going to spend a bit more time on this, but I didn't get back to it, was looking at all, like you mentioned, Von Carstein, King Lewin, or however you say it. It feels like there's a lot of, and even is it Gorbat Ironclaw, is the main guy coming into like Fire Pass, whatever. A lot of the name characters, there's a lot of them who were still in this era,
Yep.
which is interesting because we've been playing them where they probably were dead. You know what I mean? Like we've been playing these named characters in whatever it was, 2400 or 2500, whatever the current time before the end times.
Yeah.
But a lot of those figures weren't even around,
Yeah, yeah.
which is funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so they'll probably re-release those special characters, I'd imagine, if they actually get enough success. But it would be cool to be able to say, well, like you're playing with special characters that are actually alive in that time, so
Yeah.
which should be cool.
Well, the funny thing, like you said, is like a lot. Well, the name characters were kind of around them, but it seems like the time that they're almost going for, there's not a lot going on. As in, like, there's a lot of room for them to put out these new sort of name
New
characters.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
just
you're saying it's after all those ones, maybe, but before. Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of like
Yeah.
this. Well, you go through Warhammer lore and, you get like a little burst here, and then 50 years later, there's like another sentence or two. Like it's quite vague. There's a lot of room
Yeah.
to create, I suppose, what they want. And out of that, I think they're going to be able to create these new characters, give them a backstory. Like you said, you could have the Tomb Kings invading, and you could have this Bretonian force go down. I'm sure you could just fit that in the lore, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's so vague that you're going to have these battles and things and quests going on, and so yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's quite smart what they've done. They've almost got this
Yeah.
time where it's not
Mm.
it's not major, as in like there's just not a lot going on.
But it's still that same Warhammer. Like Warhammer's always been chaos is about to come and destroy the whole world.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's still doing that now. It's just
Yeah.
yeah,
now it's not the actual end world because we've seen what that looks like. Yeah.
yeah. It's just a
So,
bit of a
Yeah.
blank canvas really for them to sort of write that story and start off.
Yeah. And they
will we
can
see
also.
FEMA come back or anything like that?
Maybe.
Zotes?
So it's,
No Zotes. Okay.
Mm.
Sorry, Josh, you were saying something?
What was I saying? Yeah, I mean, they can also lean into the pre-existing stuff that is there in terms of stories and fluff and that type of thing, and they can actually just do certain campaigns for battles that have been described in the past and that type of thing. Like, I think they are going to approach it a little bit like Horace Hersey in a way, where they're going to be putting out specific scenarios so you can reenact this battle or that battle.
Yeah.
Maybe even like little PDFs. Maybe they'll properly publish them, but I can picture them also just doing little scenarios where they'll just put on the website, here's a little PDF for a battle you can reenact, which I think would be really cool and a really good way of using all that fluff and scenery and background that they do have.
Yeah. It's almost like there's a magazine that they could maybe put that sort of stuff in with some nice hobby tips and not just advertising of new models.
There's the old days.
Yeah, good old days.
So yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about lore as much as we know. We don't really know too much model wise, and we touched a little bit on that. But we've seen well, what do we know? We know that it's existing plastics. Some stuff. It sounds like new stuff, mostly resin. And when they say new, I'm guessing when it's characters and stuff, they're not going to do. Surely they're not going to do.
Sure.
New entire regiments in resin.
Nah, that'd be terrible.
No, I can't think they're gonna. I agree. It's mainly gonna be characters, and probably through Forge World, and probably cost a pretty penny. I suspect.
And obviously we've seen the 3 that we've seen so far, which is the 2 Brett ones and the Tomb King.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, what did you guys think about when you first saw, I guess, the Brett, like Warhammer Fest, the Brett Paladin and the Tomb King? I mean, was it?
I did like it. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Especially the guy on a foot. I thought he was really the Paladin on a foot. I mean, I think I was worried they were going to over stylize it, and it is pushing it a little bit. But I think overall the style does fit really well still with the 6th edition Bretonians. And I like some of the elements. I like the little lantern things he's got hanging off him, and the cloak. A lot of the detail on it is actually really good as well. So it is a real step up from the original characters and that type of thing. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to sneeze.
I mean, obviously I like the Tomb. I mean, the biggest thing to me was just how cool it was to actually see a bloody Warhammer figure finally, like a Warhammer fantasy figure. I mean, like you could have given me anything and I probably loved it. The thing I'm going to like about the Tomb King, and you can't really tell in these pictures, is like the problem with and I'm painting one now, obviously the Tomb King that's going in the chariot, like the 20 mil is almost, the 28 mil guy is just too small. Like it's just, I don't know, like it's too small for the amount of the detail is gone. He's gone because the figure's too small. So I hope bumping it to 25 mil base helps this Tomb King guy be just ever so slightly bigger. But not ridiculous. Like not, 30.
Well,
not
how
like
much
a Stormcast Eternal or anything, but just slightly bigger so he looks,
Yeah, because how much scale creep do you think they're going to be putting into these guys? Because these are all on 25s as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
I would think. And they're filling the base pretty well.
Yeah.
They're pretty chunky fellows.
That's the thing. We don't know. I think that, I mean, the fact that, like we just said, that they're mostly probably going to be character models, probably won't be able to place them when you're seeing it in a unit.
Yes, true.
That's what I'd hope.
Yeah.
So,
hopefully,
that's a fair point.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. The Paladin's cool with his whatever it is with all the stuff on his back. That's probably what you're talking about a little bit. Like it's good, but it's also, how much stuff can you cram onto one mini? It's almost like they haven't built a Warhammer fantasy model for so long. They just wanted to throw all this stuff on him, but he does look cool. I love his helmet.
But he still looks like a Bretonian Knight. He doesn't. He's not. It's not like it feels like an Age of Sigmar level of over sculpting. Well, not over, that's harsh, but it feels like a Warhammer fantasy figure.
Totally.
But a modern one, So I think it's a good balance overall.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the. I was going to say, sorry. He's just got that questing knight sort of look to him, which is probably one of the, I'd say, the most popular Bretonian knights. I think everybody loves the little questing nights. They got like random stuff that they're like, stolen from wherever they've just,
Yep.
it's just, but
Yep.
they're great. I love them, and I think everybody who loves the Bretonian models, I'd say the questing knights would be up there with one of the best sort of units or favorite units of most Bretonian fans.
Yeah,
Cool.
they're so
So
characterful,
Yeah.
and each one is very different.
yeah.
They've all become slightly idealized almost because some of them are really hard to get these days.
Yeah,
Hopefully that will change. They've got the core five, and then the other,
the
the
blisters. Yeah,
the blister guys, the
yeah,
good guy, the chef. They've all got special
yeah,
lefty. They've all got special names because they're just so hard
yeah,
to
So
get.
rare.
yeah.
But yeah, hopefully they'll get re-released next year or whenever this
Yeah.
is this whole thing
What
happens.
just correct, like I don't know, tells me it shows I don't know much about Brett line. Like what like were they all plastic? Were they resin, metal? What were all the questing nights and stuff?
They're all metal. I don't think they
Yeah.
got released in
Yeah.
resin. So they got
Yeah.
released in a box of five, like a man group and 3 guys.
Yeah,
And that
right.
was the box, and that was quite widely available. And then the others were only ever released in blister packs, and for a relatively short period of time, really, because and they became really hard to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay, cool.
even
Oh,
sure if
well, I
they
mean,
were easily accessible
they
during
must
8th
that
edition.
I would imagine they'll re-release them in resin then, if they're gonna bring them back out.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I think they'd have
Maybe.
to.
Do you?
Like, I mean, they're not gonna. Well, I doubt that. I don't know.
Wouldn't they do
Actually, I
metal?
shouldn't say that. They do metal.
They do like
The
when
order
they
ones are metal,
yeah
aren't they? The
yeah.
ones.
And
Yeah.
like
Okay.
the Lord of the Rings models, the older ones are all still in metal. And yeah, if they
Okay.
do made to order, they're still metal. I don't know. Yeah.
I thought, and I might be wrong on this one, but the molds are the same, aren't they? Like they can use a metal mold and put their resin in. Is that right or not?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I
Because
would
they're
have.
the
I would
exact
have
same
thought.
figures, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like when
yeah,
they released them as
Yeah.
fine casts, they're the
I
exact
feel like
same.
you'd need a different material for different molding materials. Yeah, I don't know. I've never looked into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Someone who knows how to cast miniatures will tell us, hopefully, because we'll have so many downloads that we'll have one of those people listening. Um, so, and then we've got the dude on a horse, the BSB guy came out. Again, I'm
Yeah.
not a Bretonian guy, so Josh is the most qualified to talk about this guy.
I don't know. Yeah,
And audio-wise, people don't even know what we're looking at, but
I
I'm
know.
assuming people do know by now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
they should know really. What I would
yeah.
hope if been following it. If they're listening to this, they likely have been following it. So hopefully
Yeah.
they know what we're talking about. But yeah, the BSB again. It's a well balanced miniature. In terms of the amount of stuff put on it. If anything, it's a little bit understated more so than the guy on foot, really.
Mm.
I like the dynamism of the horse. It's not like it's fully rearing up, but it's got some movement on the rock that all the characters have to be on.
Yep.
And I'm not sure what to make of the banner. Like,
It's
how
almost a bit
much
too
of that?
plain. Like it's almost.
It looks like, does it have a bit of 3D around it?
What's
I
what I
think it
was
might.
wondering? Is it?
I don't know.
It does. Yeah, the outline, the white outline is embossed. But I'm not sure about the rest of it.
The banner isn't, I don't think,
Yeah,
because that's his helmet.
I think that's
Yeah.
all transfer and freehand and stuff, which is interesting because a lot of the banners more recently have had embossing on them, but
I like
yeah,
it because it's just easy to paint. Like if you've got just a
yeah,
flat surface, to me I hate that. I hate flat,
Mm.
and you got to paint something on it. It's just
yeah,
because that's where you really need to be a good painter to come up with something sort of that looks really nice, and especially for a BSB, a centerpiece. That's where I liked having that embossed sort of banner so that it can still pop, and you don't have to be a golden sort of demon
Demon. Yeah.
finalist.
I guess the
Nah,
only
no,
thing that I'd like
yeah.
to change about it is the morning star thing dangling
Mm.
straight downwards in a straight line. Like I don't know, it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
feels strange that there's no motion in it or dynamism in that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just bizarre how
It does look like
perfectly
he's
straight
sort
it
of
is.
stopped a little bit. He's sort of
He
at the back of
does, and I think
the
that's what they're
battle and
trying to
he's
do.
looking out, raising
Yeah.
his flag. Yeah.
Because
He'd
if
probably
there's
have
just a little curve in it or something, like just
yeah.
it just looks too
God, you'd
lined
have to
up.
have some guns, wouldn't you, to be able to wear armor,
Yeah.
have that morning star on one hand, and still carry a banner around. God, he hasn't skipped arm day. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know what would happen, Josh? You'd have him with his little morning star in the air, and then it'd snap off every 30 seconds, and you'd be like, why did they put this stupid morning star in this position where it just snaps?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
you know, you just can't win sometimes. It's like
You're right. Especially when it's resin. Oh my god, yeah, that
Oh
would be a
God, I know,
nightmare.
because you can't. Yeah, at least the glue,
At
plastic
least if
glue will
it's
melt
metal,
it.
it's
Yeah.
gonna be okay. Or plastic you can repair. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ah, that's cool. Well, that's what we got. Although we did have, and I didn't have the picture here, but we had that leak of a peg night too, which I guess is not an official release, but we're all assuming
but we
that
we may well hear more about that later this week
on
potentially.
Thursday, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because
So
those miniatures were the sum total of the announcements that they gave. Was it 6 months ago at some other
there wasn't a lot
convention? And
well, I went to Warhammer Fest, so that was May. They were the two.
Was it Warhammer Fest?
Yeah, just those two.
Yeah.
And then the BSB was in the same sort of preview thing we're doing on Thursday, except just after all that 40K release.
Yeah.
So it was the not 40K release. Yeah.
Yeah, because I got pretty excited about that announcement, and then slightly
underwhelmed
when that was it. I mean, they were good miniatures, but I was hoping for I think we're all hoping for
more. Yeah, well, look, we'll get to that near the end here. We'll talk a little bit about our thoughts or predictions there. But I guess the other thing with models is we know for a fact that 20 mil's gone. Like that's 100% confirmed as far as I'm concerned. So if you've got a 20 mil infantry unit, then it's going to 25s. But outside of that, it doesn't. There's no real. They said most 25 goes up, but not all. And then they said most 25 by 50 goes up, but not all. But they don't tell us what.
And they're not sure what.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. And you wonder why that is that they haven't been able to nail down a number yet. Is it because they're hoping for the ability to multi-base with
sell
rounds
them the
or
bases,
something?
maybe?
Is that what it is, or
I don't know.
I feel like it's some kind of compatibility or something that they're wrangling over.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. No, I don't know, but it's a bit frustrating, isn't it? I mean, yeah. That's again not to jump on the predictions, but it does feel like that's something that we want to, if we could get that before, at least a pretty good sign of the types of sizes, I think that would help people start getting ready. But I guess we're not in charge, so we don't know. And then I think we're just talking about just in terms of AOS. So I guess we sort of talked about a bit that they're probably not. I mean, they've sort of confirmed nothing from AOS specifically is going to be backported, so you're not going to be able to use. They're not doing rules for Gore Grunter orcs, for example. But certainly, I still think there's going to be a bit more crossover as a modeler. If you want to pull a Gore Grunter over and use it as an orc chariot, or something like that. You've got way more of a range now to do it, which is pretty cool.
So is that why they're trying to work out what base size to level? So they include the Age of Sigmar players in the release. Is that what you're trying to say, that they might be able to use those models for certain units?
Yeah, I'm just saying that. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not. It's not a. They're not making one miniature for both games, but they are. I think they would love it if you had an army over here and you were buying all their miniatures. So they'd be dumb to have them totally off scale, I guess. But they mentioned even in the end of 8th edition that the figures were getting too hard to rank up. So I think they just, the types of models. I mean, they make the best models in the world. There's no, in terms of design. and so they want
Yeah.
to keep that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. I mean, there are going to be some, especially the little horde armies, Skaven and goblins, that are going to look a bit stretched out on the 25s. I
Yeah.
feel, that weren't really having
Mm.
problems with ranking, and I do wonder why they would, why not keep some guys on 20s, definitely the high elves look nicer on 25s, I think, because they're very
Yeah.
dynamic.
Well, the Black Orcs will too, because they are a
The
bitch
black.
to.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, the
And
Chaos
I imagine every
Warriors
Chaos player is, even though they're on 25s, they're probably like going, yeah, we need them bigger too, because I think even though it's sometimes tough to rank on 25s. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the Cav look better on the bigger bases too, like there was
yeah.
always a bit of a squeeze, even with the 5th edition models, the tails and the heads would always just be
Yep.
just over the lip.
Yeah.
So it always would cause a bit of a headache with ranking up. And it actually makes it nicer, if they're a bit stretched apart, you can actually see them better when they're in.
Well, that's what they actually said in the thing, that like you can see the second, third, fourth ranks better because there's a bit of a gap, And when I saw that, I read that, I went, that's a bit weird, but I sort of get what they mean. Like when I look at my block of 50, how it is, I mean, you can't see the third, fourth, fifth ranks are just shoved together. So,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
now look, what do you guys feel overall with that rebase? So, like in terms of, are you going to rebase? What does it mean for 6th edition for you? Like,
I've thought about it quite a bit. I mean, I guess it depends very much on what things settle and that type of thing. But currently, I'm mainly going to be using movement tray adapters. And I feel like you can mitigate it to some extent with the movement trays as well, because there's already a lip there, which is 2 or 3 millimeters. And if you go, I'll actually include that as part of the base, then that actually means that you probably won't need to do quite as much of a conversion as you otherwise might need to do. And then you can display the movement tray as that's the unit, that's the base size, which is actually a little bit cleaner, if anything.
And we'll get on to that a little bit in terms of what it might mean for the rules anyway. So, and I think that's what you're saying is totally correct. It's probably very little downside. I actually liked when I saw rebase, I was quite happy because it didn't bother me. Like that doesn't bother me. But now that I started playing 6, I was like, oh crap. But then I'm sort of the type of person that if for some reason I wanted to rebase, I'd probably end up stupidly just having a 6th edition army and then an old world army as well.
Well, everything's scaling up, isn't
I'm a
it?
sucker.
So
I'm a sucker for it. Yeah.
It's easy to scale up. If it was scaling down for whatever reason, like as in you can always find a way to scale up. So it shouldn't be that big a deal.
Yeah,
and you don't.
The rules are changing in a way that base coherency isn't that important anymore, then that also could
well, let's move on to that, man, because that's the next thing. Like, what do we know about that? So do you want to talk about that?
So basically what they're saying is that potentially, I mean, don't know how it's going to work exactly, but everything in the front of the unit that normally would be out of 5,000 base contact would be considered to be in base contact to fight. Like, they haven't really specifically said exactly how that would work, but do they still get supporting attacks? That type of thing. Does it matter if a character's in, like, where's a character in the front rank? It's interesting. It takes away some of the subtleties of the game. Especially in terms of what formation do you go for and that type of thing. But it's hard to pass judgment on is it a good or a bad change until you know what the rest of the rules are and how the game works as an organ. I mean, my instinct is to go, oh, I don't like this. It's not like 6th edition. But I've got but I suspect there is some benefit to it, and I think playing it might just feel a bit less messy trying to count up what bases and that type of thing. But then does it come back to, like, is that kind of like how Kings of War plays, where every unit just has a set amount of attacks and you just roll the dice, I don't know. I feel like I'll be missing something.
I'm So coming back into 6, I felt like it's a little bit because there's no step up. There's a little bit more accounting, but then like we've talked about this, Josh, haven't we? Like there's a bit more accounting of you can't attack, or they can now because you're dead or whatever. But there's also no supporting attacks, so there's less attacks, so it's not that big a deal. But then I still sort of feel like, I mean, the thing I like about that, I like things simple. So I like the idea that if I've got 10 models in the front rank, I just get 10 attacks. No one has to worry about it. It doesn't matter if I've been attacked or not. It's just 10 attacks.
Yeah.
And I feel like it speeds the game up, providing it doesn't turn into 8th. I mean, though I didn't mind 8th, but I understand it's not a great thing to have, effectively units which might have 30, 40, 50 attacks. So therefore you need to have 40, 50, 60 models in your unit to, and it just becomes this, it's like, it's like what they call it, like just an escalation between the two sides of how many figures they can have. And that just killed it. So providing there's, like you were saying, like there's some smarts around how that's, maybe there's not, there's no supporting attacks. It's just the front rank. That's it. If you're in the front rank, you can attack. I don't mind it because it's just simple. Like you just attack. You charge. You're in contact. That's it. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It just for me, it speeds it up a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It'd
Well,
be
that's it.
interesting. I mean, if they have step up and supporting attacks going on, like there's, as you say, there's so many more dice to roll, there's so many more attacks going on, there's a lot more combat res being generated, and that also just means the static combat res isn't that important in comparison.
No, exactly. They'll just keep. So you just have massive wide units then.
Yeah,
because you don't need to.
I hope they rediscover that balance in some way.
Yeah, same.
I don't know how they would do that, but I found going from 8th to 6th, that was one of the things I really liked was that static combat res is actually really important.
Yeah. But and look, maybe they'll change the long-standing thing that around, because they're saying that you have to make that decision. So maybe, I mean, again, we don't know, but maybe it's everyone in the front rank can attack, but you for every your rank bonus is +2, +6, +4, +6. So like if you want to go smaller, you want to go 4 by whatever, you're going to have +6 combat res, but you're only getting 4 attacks. Or something like that. Where you really push it.
Everyone has a Griffin standard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Look, I'll just jump in there while still we're talking about it, but I really hope, and I think GW will read the room on the old world, what people want, because if you start thinking about it, who's going to be coming to the old world? I mean, I can't see 40k players jumping in. Age of Sigma are sort of doing their own thing. You might get a few jumping across, but I think the big sort of groups who are going to be jumping into this are going to be sort of your old school Warhammer guys that are 6th edition, 8th edition, 9th age maybe, or all those guys that sort of went off somewhere. So I think they really need to read the room, be smart about what they've done. I think they will. I can't see this being a flop. I'd like to see them doing what they should be doing a bit of research and just thinking what rules worked, what annoyed people. Let's put this all together and sort of, bring the community back together to this. We're very fractured at the moment. We're sort of all over the shop in Warhammer Fantasy.
And you're right though with Horus Heresy. Like who plays that? I mean, obviously, a lot of 40k players probably do, but in reality, it's probably the 40k players that love 7th edition and whatever, 40k, and they're playing Heresy. And so, and to me, as a business person, I'd be sitting there going, who's got the most money? 40, 50-year-olds whose kids have left home and now I've got all this extra money and I love this game and it's dead. It's like far out. Like that's where you get your money. Like you could make some there, So you're right. And I think you could say whatever you want about I'm going on my soapbox here a little bit. You can talk about 8th killed it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. What killed it is Games Workshop. What killed it is Tom Kirby running that company where they didn't even talk. Like literally, I mean, have you guys read their shareholder when he was CEO and their shareholder updates? Offensive. Like there was quotes in there saying, "We do not do customer research. We know what to do. I mean,
Right.
that's just
Just arrogant.
arrogance
Yeah.
to the. I mean, he did a lot of good things in the early days. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But as the CEO, he almost took that company into the ground.
Yeah.
And it may not have gone that way if they were just doing what they're doing now, which is actually talking to the bloody community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
you know, just it needed a change. You can't expect someone to paint 200 figures to kick off a game, but you could do other things, like you said, like have a war cry, have a
Yeah.
different type of game, and then bring it up. So, but yeah, no, I think, like you're saying, read the room,
Yep.
and it will be a success. You know, yeah, it's not going to be a 40K. It's probably
Nah.
not even going to be an AOS type thing, but it will be a money spinner.
Yeah.
So
Still be successful. Yeah. 100%.
yeah. Well, we hope anyway.
Yeah.
At least for another few generations until we're all dead, and then
Yeah, that's
that'll
it.
be it. Or too blind or shaky that we can't paint.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do when you're in retirement? You're just going to play Warhammer, so it'd be good. What else do we know about the rules? Yeah, I mean, going back to your point, Josh, they sort of said a modern game in the mold of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but they said a modern game. So that is interesting, whether or not, like you said, there's that, the Kings of War type mechanics. They are probably, there is going to be elements, I think, in this that I think when you go into Horus Heresy, it's pretty 7th edition, 40K, but I don't know if this is going to be just 6th edition with some changes. I think there's going to be some things in here where we go, that's totally new. It's it's
Well, or lack thereof in terms of magic phases and that type of thing.
Wow, yeah, they've already. Yeah, sorry, yeah, you're right. So they've already told us that. So
Yeah.
that's an AOS thing almost, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And a Horus Heresy thing, bizarrely, where they got rid of the Psycho Magic phase, or the Psycho phase, which I think was thought of differently in that game. Or because I think I never really played 40K, but I always got the feedback that people hated the Psycho phase because it was poorly.
Yeah.
There wasn't many armies that really took use of it, so everyone else sort of came up against an army that did it, then they'd be like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. So I feel like that was part of the reason why in that game they sort of simplified it down to, okay, no, you've just got this ability that you can fire off rather than having a whole intricate phase about it, which sounds like that's the plan for Old World as well. I think reading it looks like they might have a role for other wizards to be able to dispel those spells depending on proximity and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I really don't know I have no idea how it really is going to work.
It could be similar to Age of Sigmar. You know how like you can give the heroes give like commands to units, like throughout. Yeah, it's not just one phase. It's kind of like in each phase you can like just pop out these sort of the heroes give off. Like I don't know what it is, command
like orders or something, or just orders.
Oh no,
command,
yeah, like a little
command,
command, and they can do different things. You could almost have it somewhere similar to that, where you got all these things that you can do, but you might just want to hold off for different phases, and yeah.
I loved Warhammer. I loved the battle magic and the cards, and whenever I like with 9th Age or even 6, one of the first things I do is print out magic items, and because I like the reference materials and all that sort of stuff. So I like having physical stuff like that, and I like and then when I went into 8th and even 6, obviously with the dice, I think there's a game there, but on the flip side, like I said before, if it probably does need to be sped up a bit, like the game can drag on, and so if getting rid of that whole phase still allows you to be, obviously have a magic heavy army if that's what you do, and still have that strategy, I think it can be, it can work. I think it's just
that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, prioritizing, spending the time in the game in stuff that people want to be doing. Yeah, that's because it is a game that, as you say, can drag on quite a lot.
I think it's one of the longest phases, really. I mean, outside of movement, it's probably magic phase, because what happens is people tend to move stuff and then they go, oh, hang on, that one. Yeah, like they're trying to cast a spell, but they've moved something wrong and that's out of range. And then you're obviously trying to work out, well, do I throw this many dice or not? And I think if you count it up, I mean, I haven't done it, but I reckon if you counted up the percentage time spent,
Yeah.
The magic phase is pretty high, but it's important. But
Yeah.
It is. It's really
yeah.
important. I think that's why it takes so
So
long, because you've got to really decide, do I dispel this? How many
yeah.
dice do I use to
Yeah,
dispel
yeah,
this? Do I use my
yeah.
dispel scroll? Yeah.
But I think if you talk to most people who talked about rank and flank, they'll talk about movement phase the most important. So maybe this will just allow you to still have a cool dynamic in magic as such, but yeah, you're just not having to suck a whole phase out. It is what it is. I mean, it's gone as far as we
Yeah.
know it, so we'll just have to
Yeah.
see how
I
it
mean, you
goes.
just want to, you don't want to lose the flavor of fantasy. I think that's where they really have to try to tie that balance between,
Yeah,
you do want to streamline things and simplify things to a certain extent. And some of the stuff is probably overtly complex. The original stuff is overtly complex, so streamlining is good. But sometimes it's very hard to tell when you're redesigning things like this. Is it actually going to impact the enjoyment? Like, is it actually going to feel bland rather than just
yeah,
streamlined?
and that's. Do you mean like, because I know AOS and maybe, I mean, Kings of War was like this. It's just like, and definitely the Psycho phase in 40k was just like, it's 2d6, you got to get 8 above. And so it ended up being like this. You're just rolling 2d6 for every magic thing. And I think the cool thing about the dice or the cards in the old one was it was a bit random, or you got to choose, I want to
Yeah.
really get this off, so I want to throw 5 dice at it, even though, yeah, it might kill yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy in it. Yeah, how many dice do you use? Do you want to risk getting
Yeah.
using 2 dice, maybe not getting the spell off, but maybe get an extra spell if you get that off, and then force him to spell that one, and then there's so many ways you can approach the magic phase in
Yeah,
fantasy.
and that's the bit I'm worried that might go, and that it's more of a, like you said, like Andrew, it's just more of a ability, and each one you buy it or whatever, and it's either cast or not based on some static dice roll, like it's always the same type of dice roll, which I think
Yeah.
is a bit
Yeah, that would
so.
be disappointing. I agree. Yeah.
Unless it's something like, hey, like if you've got, it's like the light council. It's like if you've got 2 wizards next to each other, they can cast a bit more or whatever, and then you're moving your guys around to sort of support each other more. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
What about, so the only other cool, well, there's probably a few things in rules, but the other weird one was this whole pushback mechanism. Has anyone got any comments on that one?
I'm confused.
Do you want to describe it first, or what we know about it?
So my understanding is basically it I don't know if they're playing with the words, but it's like you don't break straight away. So I don't know if that means, so basically if you lose a combat, you just don't automatically break. There's like a pushback where you be pushed back, but then you can use that as part of your it's almost like you do it on purpose as part of your strategy, because if you push somebody back, then all of a sudden you've exposed your flanks and this and that. But then that also led to the question of, well, when do you break? So yeah, there's a lot of question marks there, because it's just like, I think the wording was you don't break straight away, but
Yeah,
you
it was weird.
possibly
Yeah,
could still break
Yeah, they certainly didn't clarify it. Like, is it like
a round of combat. Like, is it 1 round of combat then after you break, or I don't know.
Yeah, or is it just like that you pass the break test, but because you lost the combat by so much, you get pushed back anyway, kind of thing? Or,
yeah, I wonder, like it could be almost
they
the
really didn't
demony thing where
clarify
it's
it at all.
like your
Yeah.
modifier comes off your leadership, and if you fail that, you're out. But if you pass your leadership, like, you know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
it's an 8, but you lost by 2, if you roll 7 or an 8, you push back. But if you roll
and maybe only
above an 8, you're out. Or I'm not, whatever the other way around, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because in War Master, the more you lose the combat by, the further you get pushed back as well.
Yeah,
which
there you
then
go. Well, it's
actually
probably
then
going to be
fuels your overruns and that type of thing as the attacker, which actually gives you more advantages in the following round. I think it was in 4th Ed as well. 4th Ed Fantasy had this thing, which was
3rd Ed had a pushback, but I can't remember what it
was.
What it was like. Yeah, 4th might have too, but I remember 3rd did, but I just can't remember, because 3rd had weird stuff too, where you could like fight 2 combats at once and weird shit. But
Right.
yeah, I have to have a look at that one. But
I played it
be
in
interesting.
War Master, and it seemed an interesting concept. It is weird weird for it to come into fantasy again. But it's interesting that they've gone back and looked at all the old rules that even were in 3rd Ed and gone, oh, this might actually be worthwhile putting back in.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, like, I know we just talked about, modern take, but I feel like there will be, like, I don't think this will be like, when you look at Warhammer 40K 10th edition, it's like the stats don't look anything like what you would imagine 40K 3rd
Yeah.
edition looked like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I still think it's going to be pretty close to what I think it'll be recognizable, but that doesn't mean that they might not flip how they do leadership, because I know they flip leadership in, that the battle shock sort of tests in
Yeah.
these other ones. I wonder if they'll just pick one of those type of characteristics and totally change it, turn it on its head.
Yeah.
So yeah, not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Guess we just don't know.
What,
Yeah, well, I don't know. Is there anything rules wise else we know,
there was
or is there anything you
one
want to
last thing I
see?
wanted to bring up, which was elicited from the photos of the Bretonnians, and that is
Yep.
potentially the old lance formations coming back.
Yes, I had that right down the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is that a picture or is that?
I think that's going to happen.
Wow.
I don't think they would just arrange them in that. I mean, yeah, it might look nicer in the photos, just like they've got the characters out of the rate units. But
Yeah.
I suspect that's because they want to actually, bring the old lance formation back again.
Wow. Okay.
Which would be really interesting. And now, when I first heard this, I was pretty dubious because I mean there were reasons they got rid of it. It's sort of complicated to use. It's hard to work out who's in base-to-base contact and that type of thing. And it can be quite sort of difficult to maneuver around in a game that everything's square and you have this weird triangle shape. In terms of blind spots and things getting around the side and that type of thing.
Yeah, like how was your how was your 90-degree line of sight measured off?
It's from the front guy.
Yeah.
So there's a huge blind spot.
Yeah.
So in the 20, I think it was the 2002 annual when they had they put out a new Bretonian list for 6th edition before the new book came out, and they had a new rule in there where they were like, you can actually skirmishes, if they get in your blind spot, doesn't matter, you can just move through the skirmishes, don't care,
Yeah.
just move through. But if you have a block guys there, we actually think it's a good thing that you can't move through that block, and it just speaks to the fact that the lance formation, as much as it's useful in the right situation, can be hard to maneuver, and if you get outmaneuvered, you end up with a big block of infantry sitting in your blind spot. That's sort of your fault, which I think is fair, because it just means you have to then maneuver. You have to wheel. You're allowed to wheel backwards with that lance, or you can just pivot. Well, not pivot, but turn, I suppose, and just face that unit, because you can't charge, you can't move. All you can do is turn and actually just take the charge, which I think is okay, because there should be some drawbacks, in terms of maneuverability for the lance. The 3-wide bus is really easy to use and gives a lot of advantages. Now the other thing that when they announced it, the other thing that was the problem with the lance, triangle lance, was working out who was in base to base contact. From the unit that's coming, and also, if you had someone charge you in the flank while you're in combat at the front, that, like, there was actually a little diagram in the annual which was so complex. It had like codes and letters all over different models saying who could strike what. But if they're actually going to have it so everyone in the front rank fights regardless, that actually alleviates that problem.
Issue.
Yeah, it's not an issue.
Okay.
It actually changes things in that way, So it actually means, maybe that makes it more feasible that they can go back to that formation.
Yeah.
Which would be cool because it's such a distinctive formation.
Oh, it is. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. Like it does, like you mentioned it, like the leaders outside, or what looks to be characters outside of units. I don't know. I don't know. Some of me just thinking it's just for photos, or just to
I hope so.
just to make
Surely.
people go, what the hell? But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, weird. Is there any rules, just before we move off on rules, is there any rules that you really hope they either stay or, needed fixing, or you'd like a bigger part of the game, or, like anything? It's probably more
I hope
discussions at the bottom, but
they don't bring back the psychology rerolls for BSBs. That was innate.
Yeah.
because I think that it just meant psychology wasn't that important, and it actually should be a really big part of the game. So yeah, I hope that kind of thing stays.
Well, you could do something different where like the BSB in a unit re-rolls, or maybe the BSB does something else other than. I mean, the other thing I'd like, which goes to that point, is if I think I like the gameplay, even though I haven't played it much, but it seems like the objectives in AOS and 40k and stuff, Warhammer Fantasy Battle was always pretty much just, go out and everyone lined up the same way most of the time and killed each other.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if there was better objective play, and in that case, figures like the BSB and stuff could play a bigger part.
Yeah.
Not just being re-rolls all the time. So
yeah. I mean, for them to do objectives, unfortunately, there are some armies that just can't. They struggle to compete with certain objectives. Mainly dwarves, really. Just they're not mobile enough. So if they had more options in the army, they could do that. I think Ninth Age is a good job where, I think was it dwarves could like triple march or something. It's good. They march 9 inches or something like that, and that just helped to bring things up. And I think they have some other units that could move up before the start of the game or something. I can't quite remember anymore. But I think that's partly why fantasy didn't really have a huge amount of objectives, because some armies back in the day just would struggle to compete.
Yeah. Well, like with 40k, and I said AOS is probably the same. I can't remember, but where you've got, both armies, there's a certain objective, but you can have secondaries that are potentially different, and stuff like that, which could help. So depending if you've got a dwarf army, it's not so mobile. You're going to pick, or you're going to throw away certain objectives that you can't get. So I think that would be interesting.
And that's the scoring is like Age of Sigmar is like the objectives, like they don't care how many people you kill. Most of it's just coming down to, who's getting the more objective points. So
I think
usually that means you need more people on the board, but like it's not so much killing. Whereas most of classic fantasy editions that we know, most of victory points are coming through the amount of enemies dead or the points that you've killed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only flip side, devil's advocate there is, like, I think if you looked at a 40k or an AOS game, it's not realistic at all. Not that Warhammer is, but, like, you don't ever get on a battlefield and go, oh, I'm doing this, and then I've got to go over here and do this, and then do, like, like, there's an army there, like, we should actually fight it and get rid of it. So,
agreed.
Yeah. It's anyone else? Any other rule things? Or
no, I think that's it. Really, that I can think of.
I did have one, which I didn't put in here, and 6 is closer, is terrain. I like they need to do stuff. I like the idea when terrain either blocks line of sight or like it does stuff, and I like forests in 6 better than 8th. I don't like getting slowed down. I think there's some stuff in 6 they should change that, but it'd be nice if terrain is thought about and it's also non-ambiguous. Like that's one thing I hope they do. Even the movement, I think in 8th, like I hate the wheel. I think they should F that off and just spin around the middle or something like that. Just because I just feel like sometimes you're just bickering over inches, and then again, those things slow stuff down. So I don't know. I feel like is that 9th where you just pivot? It's just the wheel is a move and a pivot.
No, I think that was Kings of War.
Oh, sorry, Kings. Yes, that's Kings. Yeah. Anyway, well, we're getting on there, but like, I guess, what are your overarching thoughts of where you think it? What do you think's going to happen? I guess, well, maybe even with Nova, where are we at? When's it coming? Like, what do you think?
Wait, so we're talking about what our predictions are at this point?
Yeah, pretty much now.
Is that
where are we at?
What are we going to do? Yeah, what's going to happen? I don't know. I'm not expecting much, to be honest. I'm going to be the negative Nancy in this situation and go.
You mean you mean on Thursday, or just
on Thursday.
Mean in general?
You're talking. Yeah, okay. I'm talking about Thursday. Sorry, no. Yeah, I'm hopeful for the game. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
Our World podcast. This is gonna suck.
Sorry. When you said predictions, I thought you were talking about this.
Oh no, I screwed you up there. I've just joined both our overarching thoughts, and I did say you can just. What do you think about Nova? So either way,
because I think overarching, like, really hopeful. I that it's could be a good game. It could end up hopefully bringing people together again. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to predict what's going to happen, and I guess ultimately we will always have the old editions to go back to if it ends up being
That's
not
true. We're going to
great.
get more figures for them, even if we have to use them back in 6. Yeah, that's true. Look, I think that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Just want that community back. I didn't have it for that long. I never experienced like an edition change. Like I've been only playing myself. I've not as a community, and so hopefully this is. Yeah, I mean, we said that at Castle. Hey, it was just good to have that group back. And even though some of the other guys were playing Warmaster and Kings of War, I could see them all getting pulled back into this if this becomes at least for the next few years, it becomes the the main fantasy game until it proves itself. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I'll probably this is the problem I suppose we sort of face is the community we've got is it's sort of a very aged, stuck in the way community. I think everybody, there's so many hardliners like, oh yeah, I love 6th, I'm not going to play anything else. People are, oh yeah, I love 8th, I'm not going to play anything else. Sort of, that that's the problem, I suppose, with the old world. It's just going to have these groups, I suppose, just really trying it out and giving it a good go. I'm hoping that's what people do. I hope people just don't play one game and oh, this is shit. It's just I really hope that people are just going to give it a good go. And to do that, I suppose you do need people championing the game and making sure creating events and creating publicity, and I think that's what we're going to need. And I'm hoping that GW with that is smart with some of their first releases, like Josh, you were saying before, I think Colin as well. You could have like your Cathay coming out, you could have all these sort of things that people just wanted, and it's just going to help that momentum and hopefully snowball for a few years. And because people don't like change, and this will be a lot of change. So I just hope there's some smart thinking going on, some strategy, and we will have a very fun game. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll probably echo all of that. The only thing I'd say is I was pretty confident that it's going to be released this year. And when I say released, I actually did think we'd probably get something.
Yeah.
I'm probably less, only because I don't know why I'm even thought they'd do this, but like the fact that it is the 40th anniversary of Warhammer, I thought like fantasy that surely they're going to try and at least get something on those dates. However, I mean, the fact that they've screwed up so much in terms of timing, and sometimes not their I'm not saying they're incompetent. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, especially when you're trying to sell something around the world, and this is physical stuff that's got to be in a store, so to me that's hard. So now, and then I've seen just lately, you've seen the Epic get pushed back, and I don't know, did you guys follow that? I mean, I didn't actually see the announcements, but did you hear about that?
No. Did it get
So,
pushed back?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's ever been announced by GW, but it seems like the rumors were so something happened with the rulebook. Basically, that's what I'm hearing. That I might be totally just spreading crap here, but I heard there was something misprinted, which was inappropriate.
It's official now. It's official now.
You heard it first on the Old World Fanatics, who knows so much about Epic, which is not even called Epic or whatever they call it. But something with the rule book. I don't know, something that they were not allowed. Like they went, no, we can't release it like that. I don't know if it was a wrong wording. It sounded like it's not wrong, but when you read it, it could be taken the wrong way or something. And they went, "Oh, this is going to be bad PR if it goes the wrong way." So
something significant enough,
yeah. And so they pushed it back.
Yeah.
So GW haven't announced that as far as I know, but I've just heard people saying that, and hence it's disappeared off it's just been pushed back. So what does that mean? Does that push everything else back? Who knows? And then the other thing that sort of worries me with all this is just how long I've seen the Cities of Sigmar and some of those other releases get sort of pumped up, and then eventually now it's released, or I mean the first bit of it's released, Like if we saw a starter box, well, it's not a starter box, but if we actually saw actual army or even the rule book sort of stuff come up, say even next week, I mean, it's probably still months away. And then we're already in August, or nearly September. So my best bet now is it may still, I think it'd be great if we actually saw what we will get this year, but we're not
Yeah.
going to get it till next year. That's what I think.
Mm.
I've got a
Even though
feeling, like you say, not the starter box, but there'll be like army starters, like as in like larger armies coming pre-packaged as, you know, you might have, Bretonnians and Tomb Kings. So yeah, I feel like you said, there's not going to be an army starter box, but there's going to be the ability to start, you know, a quick start with these army boxes to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping. Yeah, I just hopefully we'll see something this year and know what we're in for. But I just don't know now because it's just like, once you hit November, December, I mean, how much do they usually release? I mean, they do release stuff around Chrissy though, don't they?
Yeah, a couple little
Yeah.
Christmas present sort of things.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. It's hard to know. Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. I think this week it'll be, maybe they'll probably see the Peg Knight fellow that's already been flushed,
Yeah.
and maybe another Tomb King or two, you know, that they might present, and maybe a little bit more rule stuff. Hopefully, that's mainly what I'm expecting to see. I don't imagine that it'll be released before sort of maybe second half next year, to be quite honest. It's just
Second
been
half of next year. Wow. Okay,
Yep.
that's a while. Yeah. Yep. No, that's
That's
cool. I
my
mean, who
feeling.
knows? Yeah.
I feel like I've just been following this for so long, and it's just every time
Yeah.
I'm hopeful, it's just like, oh, okay, it's not happening.
The only thing is, like, I feel like if you're going to take that long, which I'm not
which
saying
they already
it
have.
should be shorter because I don't know how long, things take.
Yeah.
I just feel like why not try and get the basic rules out? Like not all the rules, but just stuff so you can get some of that feedback, like and do it a bit open sourcey,
Yeah.
because that's not costing you anything, if you know what I mean, not in the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
But who knows, I guess. The only thing with Nova is, I guess I haven't followed it long enough, but it feels like those type of previews are all about visuals and stuff. So I'm probably predicting that we'll see more figures or something. But in terms of like another rules discussion or whatever, I feel like that would be one of those development diary updates because they can write more.
Yeah.
Fair.
So that's about the only thing I'd say in terms of, are we expecting rules or whatever? We might have confirmation around. I don't know that. Yeah, that they're gonna, maybe we'll get some updates on. Yes, we're gonna give you this update on bases or whatever, but I don't know if, I think
Yeah, I
it's probably
hope
gonna be more
so,
visual.
or at least some
I
more
don't know.
firm dates about the time frame of when things are going to happen, and that type of thing would be really nice.
Yeah.
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 Or even just like, more information about what that potential starter box is going to be, the Tomb Kings and Bretts and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I'd love to have some more concrete stuff. Like, I think ahead of Warhammer Fest, well, I was so excited, and I was kind of like
Yeah.
put all my hobby on hold for a week because I didn't know what was going to happen, and then I was like, is this
You
all
get
it
the two
was?
models.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I
And
mean,
then
I
I'm like,
didn't fly there for that, but I went there, and I mean, I wasn't there the Saturday. I was there on the Sunday, and I spent a bit of money going to Manchester and then staying overnight, 2 nights, going to it for a day, and it was a bit of a letdown, to be honest. So,
yeah,
I mean, I think if I was into 40K and stuff and played a tournament, it'd be different. But
Yeah.
when I first booked that, because it was the 40th anniversary, and they were saying something about be there or be square, and I really thought, okay, they're announcing
Yeah.
Old World. Why would you say
oh
that?
god,
And so I
yeah,
went, this is it. This is going to line up. I'm going to be in the UK. I'm going to Warhammer Fest. They're going to announce the Old World. How cool is that? No. So I got a Tomb King out of it. But anyway.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we should be patient. Like, it'll come.
Yeah.
It'll
No, it
come,
will.
and
Yeah.
I'm just, continue to do hobby on 20 mil bases and play 6, and then when it finally comes out, I'll be like, yay, I can enjoy that too.
Yeah.
No,
But at the moment,
fair enough.
I'm not. My hobby is not involving the old world at this point. Just have to wait and see. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and look, I think that's fair enough. Like I mean, you make your own hobby, and I think we're having fun with it, and
Yeah. I think
we'll keep doing that.
I think we've all
Yeah.
been really enjoying it. Just playing the old games at the moment, and yeah. as long as
Well,
Cool. Well,
it's
I
an
mean,
ambitious project, but like, as in
it
like
is.
time
yeah.
wise,
It
how
is.
many miniatures do they need to go back and reprint?
Oh my
Like, we're
god.
talking about
Yeah.
what? How many startup races?
Oh,
Is it eight? Eight
Mm.
startup races?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
8 or
think it was
So
10
it's
8.
not,
in that.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not just rules and books. Like these are like out of print miniatures, and I don't know, it's they
And
got to
they
send
don't
them around
have,
the world, and it's
Mm.
yeah, they only have 3. I think, see, I'm saying stuff that I think I've read, and maybe I'm wrong, but they've they've only got like 3 main factories that they're building another one, or they've got room to build another one, but they're not
yeah,
haven't committed to it. And so, yeah, and 40K just stall. I mean, you've seen every time you go on their website, they got
yeah,
everything's out of stock because
Uh,
they've been printing that Leviathan box probably
yeah,
night and day for the last 6 months.
yeah, right.
Um, and so it's the same thing. It's like you can have all the goals you want, but at the end of the day, it's physical stuff that you got to pump through a machine and pump
yeah,
out a sprue, and yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and I feel like they haven't, in terms of the amount of people working on it. I feel like
yeah, it's not.
I think
yeah.
that's
It's a
limiting how quickly they can get this all running as well.
little side project. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
it's yeah. I'd imagine it's not a massive team compared to what it would have been when they were, when it was a headlining
yeah,
game.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like I said, it'll come out, and I think I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
Because
Again,
they,
rose-colored glasses, but give me some Warhammer with a good community
yeah,
feedbacking company, which they are now pretty well, like they're doing stuff. I want to see how it goes then, you
yeah,
know. So we'll see. Anyway, I think we've gone as much as we can with the old world. I just want to spend a couple of minutes just before we close out, just like what are we going to be trying to do here? I think we want to obviously do more of these shows, but we're going to try to get a game in, aren't we, Andrew? And then maybe we do a
yeah. I'm really
sort of
keen
battle report.
to roll some dice,
Yeah.
100%. So I've
And
got
kick my
this.
Tomb
Yeah,
Kings.
yeah. I've just been completely just scheming. I'm just like some little Skaven underground.
Skaven
Just
all
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that.
Just scheming. How am I going to do this? And then you're going to roll me, and I'm going to be all disappointed and
Oh no, I doubt it, man.
bloody
Yeah,
dwarfs every
yeah.
time.
I don't. Yeah, I won't cheat this time, and you'll just kick my ass. So there you go.
Nah. I'm trying to keep it as just a tournament list, as in like if it was Castle Assault again next year, what would I want to bring?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think
Oh,
that's a
fair
good way
enough.
to look at it. And then
Yep.
as people say, don't change too much. Your little tweaks here and there.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
no, totally, isn't it? Yeah. If you know your list, you know what it's good for and what it's not. And if you keep changing it around, yeah,
yeah, especially big
yeah,
changes. So
yeah. No, cool. Well, I think we're going to try and get that in. I mean, I could probably, like I said, I could probably get a game in this week,
yep,
but if not, we can do next week. But whatever. We'll probably bat rep that, and I'll put it on YouTube. But we were talking about for the podcast maybe something that Josh can walk through it with us or something. So we might
yeah,
have an episode
maybe
around that. We don't know what we're doing yet, but
try a
we'll.
yep.
commentary on it or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have to see how it goes.
You'll have to
yeah,
tune in and find out, people.
that's right. And then we'll do a quick. Well, I don't know. I hope if Nova's okay, we should just do a quick episode, even if it's 20 minutes. Just a reaction show.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
quick
If
reaction
it's really
deal we're
depressing
gonna
and
do.
sad, maybe we won't. I don't know. But
No, I
let's
Uh,
think
just
we
see.
should do it, especially if it's depressing and
Okay.
sad.
Okay. I like it. Okay. Cool. I like it.
come on, guys. 20 minutes won't be 20 minutes. All right,
No, I know that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
And I have been sending these guys all these. Like I think I'm going to set up enough that I can stream games too. I don't know about streaming, but record an actual game, and then send it out. So that'll be not just a static bat rep, but actually just video. Sort of like what's his name? The Rogue. Is it Stoss? No. What's Rogue Element Gaming?
That's
What's
I
his
love
name?
his videos. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome
Yeah,
videos.
incredible
So,
videos.
I'm basing it on sort of the angles he's got. I reckon I've got enough. So
Yeah.
maybe even when we do our game, and Andrew, we can just test some of the camera setups.
Yeah.
But I probably won't. I don't want to waste our time. I
Yeah.
don't have the full setup yet, but it'd just
Nah,
be cool
well,
if we can, if we can have podcasts, some videos. I think that'll be cool. I think
Yeah,
people will tune in, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Or our listeners will enjoy it. Next week we're going to try get one out again on Monday as well, and we're going to have Patty on, who's
mm.
Tomb Kings are those played at Castle Assault and had those awesome Tomb King. What is it? Tomb
The
Bone Giant list.
Bone Giant army. Yeah.
Yeah, she's going to come on for a few minutes and just talk about an upcoming 6th edition tournament at the end of September, which is Moab in Sydney. So it probably doesn't help our international listeners, but I thought it'd be cool to get a tournament organizer on just to promote her game, her tournament. But hopefully that's something. So if you guys are listening and know, I don't care if you're in the UK, Africa, bloody Europe somewhere, if you've got a tournament coming up and you want to just jump on a podcast and tell us about it and sort of spruce it and hopefully get some more people to it, we'd love to hear from you as well. So hopefully a little bit of a mix of stuff like that I think is going to be cool for people to listen to.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, anything else before we go, or you're all talked out?
No, I think we've covered what we wanted to cover.
Yeah, I'll go back to my scheming.
Yeah, no worries. Oh, thanks everyone for listening. Hey, to the Old World Fanatics. That's our 2nd episode. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, look, we've had great early uptake already. But if you can, I just ask one more thing, that you hit 5 stars on your podcast software of choice, because that does help. It pushes it out. But if you want to get hold of us on our socials, like I said last week, it's pretty much Old World Fanatics. So Old World Fanatics at Gmail, Old World Fanatics at Instagram and Threads. But as we remember, it's Old World Fanatic on Twitter because they're stupid limit. But other than that, hit us up on socials where we're starting to try we've got our account, we're starting to post some more stuff. So we want to hear from you guys, and thanks a lot for downloading, and stick with us, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one.
Yeah, thanks guys. Cheers. Yeah. Just tell me you recorded that. Please.
It's saying 1 hour 51. We've got to start again, guys. Now I'm stressed, man. I'm stressed that it's recording but didn't record one of us or whatever. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
This is the first time using this one.
Red spots on our fingers.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, come on, this is going to work.